In an unexpected escalation that has reignited tensions between Washington and Beijing, China has slapped severe new taxes on U.S. cargo ships entering its ports, a move that experts are calling one of the boldest trade counterattacks since the original tariff war of 2018. The announcement, made late Tuesday by China's Ministry of Finance, imposes massive port entry fees and shipping levies on all American vessels transporting goods into Chinese waters. The result: immediate chaos across global trade networks and an enraged response from President Donald Trump. According to Reuters, the new policy effectively triples the cost for U.S. shipping companies to access Chinese markets, with additional penalties for ships carrying energy products, agricultural goods, and technology equipment. The move is widely interpreted as Beijing's retaliation for years of U.S. tariff pressure and ongoing restrictions on Chinese tech giants. This is not a tax, it's a message, one analyst told Bloomberg. China is reminding Washington that global trade doesn't just run on tariffs, it runs on control of the seas. Within hours, the ripple effects began to hit American companies hard. Freight giants like Maersk and MSC reported immediate route changes to avoid Chinese ports, while agricultural exporters warned that hundreds of millions in goods could be delayed or canceled. The Wall Street Journal noted that soybean and corn shipments bound for China were being rerouted to Singapore and Malaysia, a costly detour that underscores how fragile the U.S. export market has become. In Washington, the response was swift and furious. Trump, who has spent years warning about Chinese economic blackmail, took to social media declaring, "China just made a hostile move against American trade. This will not stand." By morning, the White House confirmed that Trump's team was considering a dramatic reversal of key tariffs, effectively undoing parts of his own trade policy to stabilize the U.S. economy and calm markets in turmoil. According to insiders quoted by Politico, the decision wasn't just about economics, it was about pride and perception. Trump, known for his combative stance toward Beijing, reportedly told aides, "They want to play hardball? Fine, but we'll hit back our way." His plan, sources say, involves lifting select tariffs on Chinese imports in strategic industries, particularly in tech and manufacturing, to reduce costs for U.S. companies suffering under the retaliatory tax burden. Financial markets reacted instantly. The Dow dropped 400 points at opening, while oil and shipping stocks went into freefall. Meanwhile, the Chinese yuan strengthened slightly, signaling confidence in Beijing's ability to withstand American countermeasures. Economists warn that this new phase of the trade war is far more unpredictable than the first. It's no longer just about tariffs or exports. It's about control over the arteries of global trade. As one trade analyst put it, this is no longer a game of who pays more taxes. It's a test of who controls the movement of global goods, and therefore global power. As the shipping standoff deepened, Washington found itself under immense pressure from both Wall Street and U.S. exporters. What began as a Chinese countermeasure quickly evolved into a full-blown crisis threatening America's supply chains, consumer prices, and global credibility. Inside the West Wing, Donald Trump's top advisors urged immediate action to contain the economic fallout. And by dawn, a stunning shift was underway. The same president who once championed tariffs as America's ultimate weapon was now preparing to roll them back. According to the Financial Times, the decision came after emergency consultations with business leaders and logistics executives. Reports described tense late-night meetings in which CEOs of major manufacturing firms warned Trump that continued confrontation could cripple the backbone of U.S. exports. One executive told Politico, "The Chinese taxes aren't just hurting ships, they're choking American trade routes. We're watching billions in goods get stranded." Within 48 hours, Trump announced a partial reversal of his own tariffs on select Chinese imports, specifically targeting technology components, industrial materials, and rare earth metals. His stated goal: to stabilize the markets and protect American jobs from China's economic manipulation. But analysts saw something deeper, a reluctant admission that the trade war had reached a breaking point. Market reactions were immediate and dramatic. The Dow Jones surged 700 points on the news, while the dollar strengthened as investors interpreted the move as a sign of de-escalation. Yet, the relief was short-lived. Beijing, viewing Trump's tariff rollback as a tactical retreat, doubled down on its shipping taxes, announcing that new rates would apply not only to U.S. cargo ships, but also to vessels carrying American-made goods under foreign flags. This escalation stunned Washington. A senior Treasury official described it as a direct strike on the global logistics network, effectively undermining any hope of a quick recovery. Freight insurance costs skyrocketed, port congestion spread from Shanghai to Los Angeles, and American exporters began demanding federal compensation for their losses. In public, Trump struck a defiant tone. Speaking at a rally in Ohio, he declared, "China thought they could bully our ships, but America doesn't back down. We fight on our terms." But privately, according to Bloomberg, aides were divided. Some urged the president to reimpose stronger sanctions, while others warned that escalating further could trigger a trade paralysis with devastating effects on the U.S. economy. Meanwhile, the political backlash was intensifying. Opponents in Congress accused Trump of policy whiplash, first destabilizing global markets with tariffs, then scrambling to undo them under pressure. Senator Elizabeth Warren criticized the reversal as a panic move driven by chaos, not strategy. Even some Republican allies voiced concern, arguing that the U.S. was losing leverage while giving China time to expand its influence in global shipping. By week's end, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce issued a grim forecast. The trade standoff could cost over $60 billion in export losses by year's end if shipping disruptions persist. Economists warned that consumer prices could spike as imports grew costlier and supply lines slowed. Trump's reversal may have bought time, but it also exposed a deeper vulnerability: America's dependence on the very trade system it once sought to dominate. As the trade conflict spiraled into uncharted territory, the world began to feel the aftershocks of what economists were now calling the Great Maritime Standoff. With both Washington and Beijing refusing to yield, the global shipping industry, the lifeline of modern commerce, was thrown into turmoil. Cargo routes were redrawn, freight costs tripled, and major ports from Rotterdam to Singapore found themselves caught in the economic crossfire. According to the International Monetary Fund, the U.S.-China shipping dispute has disrupted nearly $450 billion worth of global trade flows in just a few weeks. Oil tankers carrying American crude to Asia were forced to dock in alternative ports, while European suppliers began rerouting through the Arctic and Suez corridors to bypass the Pacific tension. The result: an unprecedented reshuffling of global trade routes unseen since World War II. In Beijing, the mood was defiant. Chinese state media hailed the new taxes as a strategic correction, claiming that America's reliance on maritime dominance had made it vulnerable. The government framed its actions as a response to years of unilateral U.S. aggression. Behind the propaganda, however, China was executing a broader plan: accelerating trade partnerships across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East through the Belt and Road Initiative. By shifting trade dependence away from the West, Beijing was quietly cementing an alternative economic order, one less reliant on American power. Meanwhile, Washington's allies were growing uneasy. Japan and South Korea, both heavily dependent on U.S. shipping lanes, began expressing concern that the U.S. might lose its grip over Indo-Pacific trade routes. In Brussels, EU leaders called for an emergency summit on global maritime stability, fearing that rising shipping costs could trigger a cascade of inflation across Europe's already fragile economy. Financial markets reflected this new uncertainty. The Nikkei 225 fell to a 6-month low, while global container shipping rates reached record highs. Insurance premiums on U.S. vessels soared, with some companies halting trans-Pacific operations entirely. "It's no longer just a tariff war," said one analyst from The Economist. "It's a structural shift, a power struggle for control over the oceans." Back home, Trump's political standing was being tested like never before. His supporters praised his defiance, calling it a fight for American sovereignty, while critics labeled the chaos self-inflicted economic sabotage. Yet, despite growing domestic pressure, Trump appeared determined to press forward, insisting that China will not dictate the terms of American trade. Behind the scenes, diplomats from both nations were scrambling to find an off-ramp. Sources within the World Trade Organization confirmed that secret talks had begun between U.S. and Chinese negotiators to de-escalate shipping taxes and stabilize global trade flows. But trust was in short supply, and both sides viewed compromise as a sign of weakness. By late evening, a senior economist at Bloomberg summarized the crisis in one haunting line: "This is no longer a dispute over tariffs. It's the birth of a new trade order, one where the seas, not the markets, decide who leads the global economy." And as container ships idled in ports and markets trembled, one truth became undeniable. The world's most powerful economies were now fighting not just over goods, but over control of the future itself.